Hey, Ryuji here, and before we jump in, I want to clarify that while this video explains what I learned from Gary about how to make a compelling case for animal rights, I don't agree with or condone everything that Gary has ever said. While I highlight the ways in which I believe him to be right and effective, I also believe there are times he has been wrong and ineffective. This video, though, is not about him. It's about what I learned from watching him that helped me become a better advocate for animals. So giving an animal rights speech on the surface seems pretty simple and straightforward. Describe what animals go through, explain why it's an injustice, and offer a solution. And originally my idea was to make an entire video breaking down stuff I learned from Gary Yourofsky, but after thinking about it and going through my own experience, I realized that, that's it. That's actually pretty much it. And that was it. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to my wonderful supporters over at Patreon for making this video. No, I'm kidding. I mean, not really. It is that simple, but also it's not. I found that when it came time for me to prepare and deliver a speech, I would get stuck on a million little details. What words should I use? What story should I tell? And of course, the day of, I find myself battling the pressure of an audience who could very feasibly start hating me at any moment. So today, in order to help answer some of those questions and become a more effective speaker, I will break down some of the lessons I learned from one of the most prolific animal rights speakers of our time, Gary Yourofsky.
Besides psychological and physical abuse, torture, dismemberment, and murder, what else do you think happens to animals inside of a slaughterhouse?
For starters, Gary just always says it like it is. He prioritizes being clear about what reality is, both over his own comfort and the comfort of his audience. He uses simple words to vividly describe what animals go through.
The animals are so frightened, they won't even get off the truck. They're not stupid. They know what's next. So people go on the trucks with electric prods and force them to walk down the chutes to their own death. Or if the animals are small enough to manhandle like chickens, we'll just grab them off the trucks and toss them inside.
He calls out animal products for what they are.
Blood, flesh, veins, muscles, tendons, cow secretions, hen periods, and bee vomit.
And makes it a point to show footage of what really goes on in farms and slaughterhouses. People who have the animal's best interest in mind are few and far in between, and by default, we are the weird ones. What Gary does is he flips that script entirely. He knows that what he's saying is often considered unpopular and out there, but he just says it like it's the most obvious thing in the whole world. So many people never think about the plight of animals, and when they do, they don't take it very seriously. So the question here is, if you and I don't clearly speak up for them and say it like it is, who will?
These innocent living beings are hanged upside down, fully conscious. In other words, they go in alive against their will and come out chopped up into hundreds of pieces.
Despite being direct, Gary, at least in his speeches from back then, doesn't treat his audience like the enemy. Up front, he tells them,
I am not here to be your enemy.
And throughout the speech, he keeps building rapport with them. He does that by telling relatable stories.
Now I want to let y'all know that I was not raised vegan. I ate meat, cheese, milk, and eggs for around 25 years. I used to wear leather shoes and belts and jackets like everyone else. In fact, around 20 years ago, I even owned a fur coat.
Telling jokes.
Spinach doesn't shit. Broccoli doesn't shit. Peanuts don't shit.
And emphasizing how they're all on the same team.
All I want to do is reconnect people with animals. Awaken some emotions and some feelings and some logic that has been buried and suppressed intentionally by our society.
Gary can come off strong at first, but he makes it very clear to his audience that we're all on the same team here. For those who choose to listen, they'll see that he's not here to point fingers, blame, or make people feel bad, but he's genuinely there to create a peaceful world for animals in collaboration with everyone.
I am not here to be your enemy. I am here to call you out, though.
One of the most common things that you will encounter when you start talking about animal rights is people asking you about your opinion on this, that, and the other. Don't you think that everyone should be able to do whatever they want? What do you think about people who can't afford to be vegan? And although you may have smart and informed opinions about those things, often I found that engaging in a conversation about our opinions really only derails the conversation away from what's important: the plight of animals and the responsibility of whoever you're talking to. Gary never gets caught up in that, and instead chooses to focus his words and energy on the animal's perspective. He doesn't ask his audience to see the world through his eyes. Instead, he says,
I want to ask you to use some empathy right now. And when I say empathy, what I'm saying is place yourself in the position of the animals and start to view this issue from the animal's point of view, from the victim's point of view.
By doing that, he makes it clear that he's talking about an injustice with victims who suffer, rather than something he personally dislikes or disagrees with.
I am not trying to talk down to you when I speak about animal issues. It's just that people don't think that animals go through the same things, the same emotions that you go through, that we all go through.
I think one of the reasons that Gary compels people to not just think but also to act is because of how he creates an irresistible offer. See, the thing is that most people don't really see the problem with animal agriculture, and they see being vegan as a huge inconvenience. To them, it's like we're trying to sell them $10 for $100. However, when Gary speaks, once again, he flips the script. Most people grow up believing that killing animals for food is normal and natural, so he calls it
the worst form of cruelty and violence taking place on this planet.
And since a lot of people think that being vegan is inconvenient and extreme, he points out that
these creatures have never harmed you, violated you, or taken advantage of you in any way, shape, or form. The least you can do is return the favor.
And to make it a no-brainer, he just demonstrates how easy it is. Towards the end, he dedicates almost 8 full minutes to essentially giving a full tutorial on how to be any type of vegan you want. He goes over alternative after alternative after alternative, where to find recipes and shopping guides, how to order animal-free foods at ethnic restaurants, and even where to eat vegan near the Georgia Tech campus where he was giving that speech. In essence, he's offering $100 and only asking for 10 in return.
But here's the coolest thing about being vegan in this day and age. It's never been easier. You can have the same smell, taste, and texture of meat, cheese, and milk without it. Nobody has to suffer and die for your dinner anymore, including you.
One of the things that makes Gary unique and powerful is the sheer volume of experience he has as an activist. I encourage you to read about his adventures on his website, but to give you an idea, by the time he's giving this Georgia Tech speech, he's had 17 years of experience as an activist. Look, I don't have nearly as much experience as Gary, but even for me, when I started bearing witness at slaughterhouses, spending time with animals at sanctuaries, and talking to a lot of people about animal rights, I became so much more comfortable speaking about the whole thing, and people just became a lot more receptive because I had so much more authority. This is not to say that you can't say anything unless you have 17 years of experience, but you should be aware that unless you have some experience, there are certain things that you're not really going to know, and there are certain things that you're not going to be able to say, or at least as convincingly.
I spent 6 weeks at Thornapple Valley Pig Slaughterhouse in Detroit in 1993. I broke into animal research laboratories. I broke into fur farms. I went behind the scenes of every circus and every rodeo that ever came through Michigan. Worst scream I've ever heard. A mother cow on a dairy farm, as she screams and bellows her lungs out day after day for her stolen baby to be given back to her.
Love him or hate him, there's a lot to learn from Gary, especially for people who are focused on educational activism. I think that if we all take the time to understand what he's doing and why he's doing it, we can all become more effective advocates for the animals. So, next time you're speaking to expose the plight of animals, try those things out. Say it like it is, be a friend, communicate the animal's perspective, create an irresistible offer, and channel your experience. And that was it. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to my wonderful supporters over at Patreon for making this video possible. I love you, you're awesome, and until next time, let's keep defending animals.